Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, and let's talk about newspapers. No, seriously, I'm not joking. I wanted to talk about the idea of newspapers and The Sims 4 because I think there's one more good reason to bring them back. Not something that's super high on my wish list by any means, but still a discussion that I wanted to open up here. So, newspapers definitely made a lot of sense in the older Sims games because they were made during a time when print media was more prominent. I guess by the time The Sims 3 came out, it was already starting to be phased out a little bit, but especially now, when The Sims 4 came out almost 5 years ago to this day, yeah, definitely online media has taken over, even though newspapers still exist technically. And in my opinion, the primary reason to have newspapers in the older games was so that you could find a job without needing to buy a computer, even though the computer usually has more job offers per day than the newspaper did. But still, yeah, the newspaper is just right there, delivered for free every day, and they would eventually pile up on your lawn if you didn't do anything, and then they'd rot, and then eventually the newspaper delivery sim would be like, you have too many on your lawn, so I'm just gonna stop delivering them. But by then, it's already so many newspapers, and yeah, that was definitely an annoyance with the older games that I do not miss. But there were some other features too, depending on the game that you played. Like with The Sims 3, you could read the newspaper to find out the hotspots in the area. Or in The Sims 2, you could make a paper airplane out of it because reasons. And you could also do things like crosswords, check the weather forecast, so there were still some things to do with the newspaper besides finding a job and just reading the newspaper. But now we come to The Sims 4, where it does seem like at first there isn't really much point in having the newspaper, because now your Sims get phones for free, and then there's also the computer, so all the functions of a newspaper you can do on the computer now. So why bring them back? Well, I was thinking about the off-the-grid gameplay that they introduced back in June before Island Living came out. And I was thinking, well, I mean, sure, you could still visit a lot that is on the grid if you do want your sim to go and look for a job, because the Wi-Fi does not work off the grid. They can't use a computer then, but then there's just like, well, you have to go through a loading screen. Plus, it might not make sense for the story that you're trying to tell to have your sim go to another lot and go to like an internet cafe and look for a job there. Maybe they just want to pick up a newspaper. Maybe they don't like using technology. So I still think there's storytelling reasons to bring back newspapers. It's almost similar to like what I say about cars all the time. Like the main reason to have cars in The Sims 4 would be for storytelling purposes. A little bit of build as well so that you can have more realistic driveways and garages instead of using fake cars, but at least now you can actually use cars from the world instead of blowing up toy cars to a larger size. I think newspapers, yeah, it's worth opening up a discussion about them. I still don't think they're a super high priority. I do want cars more. But I think newspapers would be worth having back in The Sims 4 eventually, especially if they do hopefully expand on off-the-grid gameplay even more, because I do feel like they didn't quite finish that lottery. I still think there could be more to it, but I think newspapers would be a nice little addition to the game. And, oh yeah, I just thought of another point. What if you're trying to simulate an era where print media was more prominent? Like when you try to set up a role play where you're not like in the current modern times that the game kind of defaults to, but something like a much older decade. Maybe you want your Sims to live the mid-century life, complete with mid-century furniture and retro diners and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, you could have newspapers in that sort of environment. And it would help a lot if there was a world like that. I guess Oasis Springs, you can almost kind of set that up with the backdrops, but yeah, I think that'd be really cool. If newspapers were to be brought back in The Sims 4, they could be an opt-in service, especially since we have gone this long in The Sims 4 without newspapers. It would probably be a little too much if suddenly everyone's Sims were just constantly getting newspapers all the time and we were going back to those times of rotten newspapers littering our lawns. So I think it would be best to have options on the mailbox or on the options menu, or both. And I guess you could also have it through the phone and the computer, but I especially want to emphasize the mailbox and the options menu so that for off-the-grid players, you can have those. So let me know in the comment section below, would you like to see newspapers back in The Sims 4? Or are you okay with just using the phones and computers like we have been for the past 5 years? And be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with my latest content from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!